Welcome back to Pommy and Oz. Hope we're all doing absolutely awesome. What a week, eh? And it just goes to show, doesn't it? This wonderful game that we put way too much energy and time into can really flick the switch innerly of our emotions, doesn't it? Welcome back to Pommy and Oz. Much love to everyone. It's been a great season, and we wrap it up with the review of Carlton versus Collingwood. And unfortunately, against the old enemy, we went down by a point, knocking us out of finals. I'm sure we're all hurting, and it sucks. It sucks. What can I say? It's been a roller coaster of a year, and I think the wonderful thing about this game, in a way, was it was kind of all the season wrapped up into one, wasn't it, really? And ultimately, we paid the price. A weird game, I think. It was a real derby atmosphere on the watch along. It felt very nervy from the boys at the start. They felt like there was a real tentative feeling, and it's something that we've seen since the bye from the boys, this real tentative nature of the ball movement. We understand Voss likes to play a very high ball retention, and particularly the first half, it felt like Carlton wanted to sit there and poke and prod. And when you do that, you've got to have a little bit of endeavour, which we've seen throughout this year. When they do play that way with a little bit of endeavour, a bit of dash, a bit of boldness, it does seem to provide a lot more fruits. When it goes very tentative and very retentive, you can almost see it, can't you? It's very insular in a lot of the players and in how it transpires, that they really do struggle with the pressure because they just they kind of almost sit on the ball and allow the opposition. And Collingwood found a real great avenue with their spread away from this. And we have seen it time and time again. One of the things that I'm sure Vossi will be working on hard in the off-season and the pre-season leading up to next year is their ability, when it does become tight like that, to not be drawn into the contest. And you saw a lot of the times, particularly how they caught us on transition, how players get caught into areas as opposed to where they should be. Their ability to transition by going out wide and then back through the corridor really did sting us at times. The third quarter, what we've just described was the total opposite. There was a bit of dare, a bit of endeavour. There was the corridor kick came back. The players were willing to keep their width. They were willing to allow their bigger bodies to win the ball out of the corridor and get the ball out wide. There was some real daring moments. There was some beautiful moments as well. You know, Marchbank's tackle, McGovern was everywhere. Fisher's wonderful little high IQ tap forward. And it was like a tale of two teams, wasn't it? Tale of two teams. And Carlton are the ultimate Jekyll and Hyde side. And I don't know if that makes them exciting to support. It makes them very frustrating to support, because I don't think anyone can doubt that Carlton's best can compete. It's about having that sustainability to have the best for a while. And unfortunately, what Collingwood do very well in the fourth, they showed you, they hurry opposition. And it's something that we said in the preview. Good teams hurry you. And if you're a high ball retention side like ourselves, you hurry. And when you look at the stats, and you know I love a stat, I always say that the stats can give you some answers into where it's going. And when you look at Carlton, they dominated ground ball, which is a show of intensity. They dominated 90% of the areas. The big difference here is the basics and the application of said basics. And that's something that under pressure is really starting to show from the boys. These guys are good footballers. You know, if we took them down to the park and we had them 22 on 22 kickabout, they'd be very, very accomplished. You can see, though, when the pressure comes, the basics, the handball, the kick, the running back, the running for space. And that was a huge thing here. If you go back and watch the first half and you watch when Carlton had the ball, particularly in the defensive half, you look ahead of the ground and there was a wonderful scene where Will Oskin-Elliott took an intercept mark and he's actually ran 30 metres from when we take the ball out of defence knowing it was going to a 2-on-1 down the wing, and just simply slotted the intercepts, just slot in there unaided. And that work rate is a real huge thing, and that's a real basic of Vossi's game plan, particularly the running past the ball carrier and the running in defence and running in attack. There was another part that really showed it in the fourth quarter where old Jack Martin is chasing someone from a transition, and Mitch McGovern is 20 metres behind him and ends up overlapping him to make the spoil. And it's little things like that, just them little 1%ers add up. And that's what separates the great from the good. I'm not going to sit here and say Collingwood are lucky, because I think that's very unfair. And I've heard a lot of comments of people saying it's been a bit harsh to Pies. Because at the end of the day, what the Pies did is they executed the basics far better than us. And that's what they've done throughout the year. It's not a complicated game plan to understand what Collingwood do. It's just the fact that they execute the basics. And you can see it's a real high intensity work in training on them basics, because them basics came to the fore in that fourth. And ultimately, when I watched that game back, I don't know, it's easy when you watch a game back because it broke me to watch it. You could see there was an inevitability around that 10-minute mark. And it's the same things that happen week on, week in, if you know what I mean. It's the same culprits. Charlie always plays on quickly. Doc always will spin round and end up putting himself under pressure and boot it out of bounds. It's happened about 12 times in the last 6 weeks. These are simple things where in the third quarter, Doc wouldn't have taken that spin, would have hit up an inside-out handball, which he had opportunity at the time. He just missed. He didn't look for Sard. Cripps will take the game on. And you can't lambast these players. This is a habit. And the habit needs to be broken. And I always try and do these reviews and previews with trying to associate it. I think it's very important when you analyze anything. You try and get yourself into a similar headspace to the players. And no doubt these players are going to be hurting just as, maybe not as much as us, but they're going to be hurting. It's going to rock them, because you saw them scenes, Cripper hitting the deck, Charlie screaming the F word. There's no doubt that they're playing in their mind now what could have been and how could have been. And when you miss out on such a small percentage as well, there'll be players that will go back. Jack Noons will go back and think, how the fuck did I miss that set shot against St Kilda? I mean, Harry Mackay will go back to that game and think, you know what, when I had them 4 behinds that game, maybe if one went in. And you can't really do that. You can't really do that. If you do that, you'll go mad. But I always think of things when I've got it. I remember being a very young man. And I think it was the first time I cried at sport. And I came second in junior club championships. Very young boy. I was only about 9, 10. I remember crying all the way home. And I remember my pop didn't say anything. I think that broke me. He didn't say anything. I think he felt my pain. And he always used to say to me, son, that there's no such thing as a mistake. It's a lesson as long as you learn from it and you come back and use this pain. And I ended up winning the next 3. And it really changed my life, really, because that was the career I went down after that. And that's the mindset these players can do. In great trauma, some wonderful things are built. And that is the mindset as a fan base and as a club. Now we've got to look. We've been dealt our lesson. We're 9th, right? We're average. The great news is there's other levels to go. Very young group. It's not going to get better linearly, but at least we know where we stand as of today, 2022. That is now the next layers we've got. Yes, 9th is a failure of the year. It's not a success. It's an improvement, though. And you can be happy with the improvement. And you've got to have an understanding that the aim by the club was the 8. And that is going to hurt them. And when you fail at anything in life, you're judged by your next step. So for me now, I think I look back at this game and it is a sore disappointment that we've become a meme again. You know what I mean? We've gone from being spooners now to 9th. which for me, the pain is equal. Do you know what I mean? In fact, some ways I find being 18th is a little bit better because it's a real, you're miles away. I don't think there's anyone out there who doesn't think we're close. But what is important now is this doesn't become habitual. So what do we need? I mean, in my opinion, we'll go into this in more detail, but I think we definitely need, I think, when you look at the forward line, I thought the forward line this week was woeful, particularly in them 3 quarters. They sit far too back. They don't apply enough pressure. They don't put that real ferocity that we saw in the 3rd quarter enough. And I think that's indiscipline. It's a lack of discipline. Do you know what I mean? They had 15 tackles inside 50 to 3. And it didn't feel like that, if you know what I mean. It felt like they were desperation tackles. And they're high numbers. But it's what they do with it after. There was a lot of times that they won the ball back in them inside 50 tackles. And then they gave it straight up, if you know what I mean. They gave it straight up. 0-6 in the 4th quarter. When the game is on the line, you think you've only got to get one of them. That's a big thing. And that 5 goals, 1 from them in the 4th. 3 of them goals came from defensive transitions. And 2 of them came from Carlton actually getting the ball back from inside 50s and no one being at the fall of that tackle when the ball became loose. And that's an area that Carlton have got to do. So I do think that they need some kind of seniority in there, some leadership. Maybe that's a Gunston, maybe it's someone like that. But I think the back line and the midfield work pretty well because they've got leaders there. I think at times, I wouldn't say Charlie Curnow and Harry Mackay are leaders in that avenue of being disciplined because themselves show immaturity in their decision-making, which is fair enough. That's cool. That's who they are. And that's something that we've got to do. All in all, we'll go into detail. We'll have a season review and stuff. But this is really disappointing and it hurts. And from a personal point of view, I'm very impressed in how us as a fan base have rallied behind each other. That shows strength. That shows strength. But it's okay to expect more. I want you to know that. It's okay. If you're out there and you think 9's not good enough, that's fucking good. That's good because that shows me that you're going to get better. If you think 9th is the be-all and end-all and that's success, ask yourself if you think that's a success, how are you going to word getting into the top 4? That would be a superior success. And I want to leave you with what Chris Scott was mentioning this weekend, saying that winning the ladder doesn't give any respect in the AFL, and it's the only sport that doesn't. I think he's spot on there when he said that their aim is to be the best side every round. I think that what we've learned this year is we're exceptionally close, but there is a huge gap. And now we can take solace in the fact that these boys are a young core group who have played quite a lot of games for their age. We can take solace in that. And if you're looking at a development strategy, that's one thing that would warm the cockles. But at the moment, they're not reaching their full potential. So that is where they've got to look. And it really comes down, I personally believe, and I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts in the chat, it's the basics. It's the execution of basics. And is that going to be something like, we know that McRae, we know lots of top football in the UK use the whistle drill, which is you blow the whistle and you've got to dispose it straight away no matter what. And you start to learn real-time feedback in what you're doing and become comfortable in having to make a decision on the whistle, which is definitely something. There's the advanced drill. Pep likes this, where they blow an amount of whistles, is which way you've got to kick the ball, which then also encourages movement ahead of the ball. And really, Carlton will look back at this game and say, if we kicked better, we would have won. If we created better chances, we would have won. If we ran with each other, we would have run. If we field kicked better, handballed better, worked with each other better, this game should be won. And they were outworked. And that'll sting. That'll sting. When you get 90% right and 10% isn't there, that's when it stings. I'm a very broken man, but I want to thank everyone on this channel who has been a part of it, whether it be a comment, whether it be a like, whether it be a subscribe. Still got content coming. We'll still be churning it out. Don't worry, I'm not going anywhere, but I love you all. And we'll rally around each other and we go again. Do you know what I mean? We go again. This is not how it ends. This is how it begins. Stay safe. See you tomorrow. Pom out.